The previous basket is under review.
Hello and welcome to the Basket Under Review podcast. I am your host, Eamonn Brennan, coming to you live just after the Final Four. I ran back to my hotel, got in position because I don't trust the Lucas Oil Stadium Wi-Fi. And I've got Tate, Frazier from The Ringer on the line as ever. We are going to get to a very interesting, if not like the most scintillatingly entertaining, although I would say interesting, cerebral, lots of stuff to talk to and get to, from the Final Four, both games really in varying extremes. So we're gonna get to UConn, Michigan, the teams they vanquished tonight, en route to Monday's national title game. We're going to react to all of that and maybe look ahead a little bit to Monday, because the next time we'll do a show will be right after the game on Monday night. Before we do that, as ever, I am bound to mention that you should go to basketunderreview.com, sign up for $10 a month, get access to everything everybody's doing there. There's been great daily content from all the writers who I hung out with here in Indianapolis last night, and that was fun. Little team bonding activities, really good stuff. They've been working hard, churning out great stuff, great video and audio content, which you can support by going through the website and supporting our show. Getting access to the Discord where Trilly breaks news. It's that time of year. So it's all happening at basketunderreview.com. It's $10 a month. Go sign up, support us, and thank you to everyone who's already doing that. Also, check out our presenting sponsor, homefieldapparel.com, the best place in the world to get college athletics apparel. They're an Indiana-based company. They've been active at the Final Four. They had some events earlier today. Maybe some of you saw them out and about or picked up some swag along the way. Thank you, as ever, to Homefield for being an awesome part of the college sports landscape and for supporting our program. Okay, Tate, we've got two national title teams set for Monday night. We had an interesting, somewhat clinical, it felt like to me, UConn win, a massively impressive UConn win considering Dan Hurley's record in this competition is just like ludicrous at this point. And then obviously we had Michigan putting the proverbial belt to the proverbial rear end of Arizona. We can break down how and why that all happened. But what did you make of the night? What are your feelings coming off the second game here? We're like 20 minutes after.
Yeah, I'm a little shocked, honestly. We had this game billed as one of the best games in college basketball, and for whatever reason, it felt like Arizona turned into Gonzaga in this game, and Michigan put it to them. And I think we're still reeling a little bit, trying to figure out how this all happened. I think, obviously, the conversation going into the game was, Michigan's going to pack the paint. This wasn't going to be an easy game at the rim for Arizona, and it played out that way. I just think we were all kind of shocked that there was no second effort or no kind of change of course there for Arizona. There was really no way for them to survive this game, and Dusty May put on a clinic. I did think it was a little bit brazen when Dusty May was at the first game, scouting the first game himself. It did feel like a little bit of maybe jumping the gun there from Dusty May, but it turned out that he had a Nostradamus moment there. He kind of knew what was going to happen in this game at some level, and you have to give him credit. Adai Mara was great in this game. Elliot Cadeau really controlled the game on both ends of the floor. He could get downhill whenever he wanted to, and I think that was a big storyline in this game. And then the fact that Michigan did this without Lindeborg. I mean, I know Lindeborg had some moments, hit some big shots for them, and did, put up numbers at some level, but he has the MCL sprain. He has the ankle issue that kind of gets re-aggravated. So just a very strange game in general. And this Arizona team has had an incredible season, but man, it just did not look like the Arizona team we have seen all year long. And that is credit to Michigan because they dominated this game.
Yeah, they really did. I think, I wrote on my newsletter buzzer before the game, kind of previewing it with four big questions, one for each team. And the question was, can Arizona score inside against Michigan? Because I think for a while anyway, this season had kind of the vague impression with Arizona that, because of the pace at which they play and how they space the floor and the talented, the talent level of the guys that they have, you kind of feel like they should be, and they go on these runs where they put up 17, 20 points in a spurt and hit a couple threes along the way and then just bury teams all season. I mean, they were spectacular all year. But you actually go in and look and start figuring out matchups and how the game might play out, and you realize, Arizona came into this game ranked like in the very bottom of Division I in 3-point attempt rate, right? They just, they don't shoot a ton of threes. They shoot a good percentage, but they don't attempt a ton because they just get layups. They're very much in the trend with Michigan, Duke to some level, Florida. All of the number one seeds this year were really big and really rim dominant on both ends of the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Easy buckets for us, no easy buckets for you, and then you build outward from there. But Arizona, Michigan is not like any other team, right? They're this incredibly dominant interior defense. And the big question was like, okay, can Arizona do what they usually do to basically every other team in Division One as a routine against Michigan? And if not, what do they do then? Do you say, okay, like we are just going to have to take more threes? Like we just are going to have to build this out to the perimeter a bit. We're going to have to take more mid-range pull-ups. It's easier said than done because Michigan runs people off the line. That's all very much by design. But Arizona wasn't able to do that at any level. And it was almost comical sometimes, some of the sequences, sitting there watching the game, taking notes of like, there was one point, I think pretty early in the second half where Arizona had 2 4 or 5 foot shots that, missed by 2 feet or whatever. Like they just completely contested or blocked, scrabble for a rebound, grab it. And then another really bad contested shot. And it's just like over and over again, just running your head into this brick wall, and the brick wall wins at the end. And because Michigan is more diverse in the way, they want to do the same thing on the offensive end. Obviously, Mara had a spectacular game doing that, and we can break his performance down a bit. But, Michigan also makes plenty of threes, and they get out and run, and they do different stuff on offense that they're not one trick. And so if Arizona pulled the reverse, which was, they didn't really do in the end because it was such a comprehensive win by Michigan. But you could imagine a world in which neither team gets easy buckets, and the difference is Michigan's willing to stretch it out a little bit and do some different stuff on offense. So yeah, it was just a team that has done plenty of things, but especially one thing offensively super, super, super well all year. And against almost any other team in the country, you can see it working. And Michigan just happens to be that team that also does that well and can do some other stuff because they're, we're looking at a potentially, after this game, after the way they got to the Final Four, we're talking about a potentially historic team here if they can finish the job on Monday.
Yeah, you got a new nickname for Daimara, the brick wall. That was what was the issue. Every single time they got around the rim, it did feel like a Daimara. I mean, his hands are incredible. Some of the catches that he had, just like, getting post position and just catching the ball at the elbow to help them get into sets. I mean, you can just sort of see what he's able to do just with like his ability to be able to kind of orchestrate as well. And he and Elliot Cadeau are kind of on a string with each other. And you kind of look at the stats here after the game, and I really don't feel like the stats tell the story of the game. I mean, they both tied with 36 points in the paint, but in reality, like a lot of that stuff in the second half kind of was in garbage time because this game was, for the most part, pretty much over with. Like Michigan threw the first punch and it was a blow. And I just don't think that Arizona really ever got, they were just scrambled from the start and it just felt like they were chasing this entire game. And Michigan's physicality, obviously what you have with Morez Johnson and Adai Mara, that is just really hard to deal with. And I just felt like the entire time, Dusty May kind of showed his hand early. He was like, we're going to pack the paint. We're going to give you these shots. We want you to take these shots. Arizona kind of refused to take those shots, which is fair. They're going to play their game, but they just kind of went into the paint with no plan, and they weren't able to get offensive rebounds. Michigan cleaned up the glass, and there were so many times too where the guards for Michigan, whether it was Cadeau or Roddy Gale or McKinney coming off the bench, like they would end up with the rebounds. Like they just felt like they got to every loose ball in this game. And then you look at the points off turnovers, 26 points off turnovers in this game for Michigan. And every single time that Arizona did cough it up, it just felt like Michigan got downhill out on the break and just made them pay for it. So it was really just an elite performance all around. Great scouting by Michigan to kind of know where Arizona's weak points were and what they didn't want to do. And they made them play uncomfortable the entire game. And I think, you could kind of go through the MVPs of this game. Cadeau would be one for me. Obviously Mara is one, and then McKinney off the bench. I mean, I think those three guys all just had incredible efforts tonight in this game. And Michigan really never got pressed or pushed or felt like they were in any sort of trouble. Even when Arizona had a couple false hope runs. I mean, I tweeted it. It was Burries hit a 3 with like 13 minutes to go, and it felt like the Chris Paul 3, with the meme where he's like hits a huge 3 to cut it to 42. That just kind of felt like where things were trending in the direction for Arizona. And man, it is. Kellogg was saying this before the game, and I know Charles was giving him a lot of credit. He was just like, "There's no answer for Mara." We thought Krivas would be an answer, but it was just different echelons there, and he really was the difference in this game.
Yeah, I mean, other than Toby Awaka literally like shoving Mara under the rim a couple times, there, they had very little success against him on the interior. And you're right. I mean, you could imagine, and we'll see if he actually says anything about this, maybe in the press conferences or the media stuff after. You can imagine Tommy Lloyd telling his team, like, no, do not get into. Do not let them dictate the terms of engagement, right?
Right.
We're the best team in the country. We're playing the way we want to play. Do not let yourself get suckered into taking a bunch more threes than we normally take. Don't play differently. And I can very much understand that being the sort of tactical idea at the start of the game. But once you get down 20 and you can't score on the inside and these guys are getting buckets at will on the other end, then it's time to maybe adjust a little bit and start to be a little bit more willing. And you're right. I mean, yeah, they hit a couple, Burry's hit a three, and then Koa Pete hit a three on almost probably consecutive possession. I can't remember exactly. It was like early, midway through the second half, whatever. And you're just kind of like, guys, I mean, you do have some shooters on this team, and they're kind of giving you a few of these. You should take them. You know what I mean? Like Karchenkov can shoot it. Obviously, Dolorso hit a couple. But, they just really didn't have enough to keep pace. And then, on the other end of the floor, I thought Cadeau was spectacular. And, at one point I'm looking at the stats, and I have it in my notes somewhere here where, it's 1540 in the second half. I look down at the stats, and Cadeau's 2 of 14. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, what? Like, this guy's been dominant. I've been talking to my, live chat with readers, on Substack, talking about how great he's been and he's running this game and blah, blah, blah. And I hadn't bothered to look down at his shooting numbers, and he's having like a, on paper, this bad volume shooting night or whatever. But when you're watching the game, and he obviously had the turnovers too, and that just kind of that's baked in a little bit with him sometimes. He's a spectacular passer and playmaker, but he tries stuff, and sometimes things go a little awry turnover-wise. But he also had 4 steals. And I do think he ran the game offensively for Michigan in a way that the stats don't totally reflect. I mean, his plus-minus reflects it. He had the best plus-minus on the team. I think it was like 23, 24 in the positive category. And he, a lot of those misses, not a lot, but some of them are shots that he like just, gets into the rim. They've got Adai Mara running at the rim, or Morris Johnson, or whoever it is, and they're crashing, and he just will kind of flip it up off the backboard. And it's
like a borderline hockey assist, right? He's just like the backboard is going to be the one that gets the assist, right? I just throw it up and let it happen. Yeah,
it's like it's not life or death if it doesn't go in. Someone's probably going to dunk this, at whether it's a pure lob or you just kind of throw it up around the cylinder and see what happens from there. And yeah, I mean, you combine his ability to get in the lane off those screens, get Mara moving, throw up lobs to him. I mean, there was one that he did underhand, and it was like Globetrotter stuff, and Mara like caught it with his left hand somehow and put it up in off the glass. It's just like a real clinic from him, distributing the ball, getting into the middle of the lane, and it happened so early in the game that it was like the first warning sign. It wasn't just, Arizona's, again, smashing their head against a brick wall on the other end. It was like Cadeau's getting around the corner in a way that I'm not sure I thought was going to be as consistent as it was, before the game. You kind of think these guys are going to be able to stay in front of him and pick up the screens and do, frankly, a lot of stuff we saw UConn do to Wagler and Merkovich in the previous game. And they just weren't able to do it. And he's getting into the lane first 2 minutes of the game, first 4 or 5 possessions. You're just like, these 2 indicators are not good for Arizona. This is not a good. The flashing lights were bright red at that point.
And it's crazy too, because if you really take it like the look at the game, right? Yaxel has a bad first foul, which is kind of a head shaking foul. Then he falls for like a shot fake on Bradley, fouls him, another bad foul. So he's got 2 of the quickest fouls you could get before the under 16, which is, you tell Dusty May that before the game, like Yaxel's going to have 2 fouls with 17:34 to go in the first half. He's like, oh man, that's kind of nightmare fuel for me. I really hope we don't have to deal with that. And he ends up playing 15 minutes in this game. And it's kind of a side note, it's kind of an afterthought. I mean, after the game, obviously we're worried about his injury. We'll see. He said if he can walk, he's going to play on Monday night, and that's a separate storyline. We'll save that when we talk about Monday. But for this team to be able to play that connected as a group, and when he came back in the game after he had the 2 fouls, he's obviously a little bit cold. Cadeau gets downhill immediately and then finds him in the corner, and he knocks down a 3. It was just like that sort of high IQ level play from Elliot Cadeau was all night. He had one ridiculous no-look assist early in the second half where he looks off Roddy Gale and gets a backdoor layup. That was just like, man, this guy's operating at a high level in this game. And like you said, the stats don't really feed into what you watch with your eyes. If you didn't even look at the box score and someone told me that Elliot Cadeau was like 6 for 10 from the floor and had 15 assists, I'd be like, yeah, probably. I mean, that's how it feels. I mean, he's just been so good throughout this game, and it just was one of those things where I think in both games, I mean, UConn did the same thing to Illinois, and Michigan did it to Arizona. It's like they threw the first punch and kind of set the terms of engagement. And from there, both teams were reeling. Their heads were spinning a little bit. And I did think that was sort of a talking point going into these games where Dusty May has been in the Final Four, has had the moment with FAU where he was like, we were kind of happy to be here a little bit, and we got, a little bit shook by the moment. And I think that the teams with those coaches that understand that, when you talk about Hurley, you talk about May, they came out and played that way. And I felt like the teams that had just kind of been there their first time, they were almost a little bit hesitant to get into the flow of the game. And by the time they got into the flow of the game was damn near over, especially when you talk about Michigan. It was like 10-1. Michigan's getting everything they want. Morris Johnson is like, you almost need Morris Johnson to have like a little bit of like physicality early on and let him set the tone, and he did. And from there, it was just kind of curtains for Arizona for the rest of the game. And they kept cutting over to Tommy Lloyd. I could see Tommy Lloyd sitting there being like, I can't believe this is happening right now. But it just happens quick. And I think, for anybody that's never been in one of those Final Four games, you kind of feel disconnected to the action sometimes because it's such a big arena. And when you're, below the court and all that sort of, like all that stuff kind of like, your eyes are just everywhere. You're kind of looking all over the place. And I do feel like sometimes the atmosphere can take you out of it. And, Brad Underwood spent most of the game turning his head around looking at the bench. And meanwhile, Dan Hurley's like orchestrating everything and he's on the court, and I think that sort of summed up that game at some level where like Dusty and Hurley being in that environment before, I think it was a real advantage. And it's not to take away from obviously the players play and that's where the game is. But I do think that both those guys kind of felt like master, like they were, kind of the maestros of the moment, and they handled it both really well.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a hard thing to describe, but it does feel a little surreal in there. It feels like especially when the games are really tight, and it's almost like it's happening in like a weird dream state type of thing.
Right.
It's just an odd feeling. It's like it's underwater or something. Speaking of which, as I was leaving to come do the podcast, I walked out of the press room and almost bumped into Boban, who was dapping up Tyler Hansbrough.
Nice.
And I'm just like, this is the Final Four. Like, this is the surreal. Like,
love.
This is like a fever dream. If I got sick, I'd be like, I had the craziest dream where I saw Boban Bogdanovic, doing the bro hug with Tyler Hansbrough and being like, hey, what's up, Tyler? And just like, what is going on right now? But that's kind of the Final Four, man. It's like, you walk back to get a Diet Coke and a Final Four branded cup at halftime or whatever, and it's like, oh, I was just walking 2 feet behind Dr. J. That's pretty cool. I mean, there's just
the Fab Fives over there in the corner. Yeah, it's just like your eyes can get taken all over the place, and like if they're not in the right place in the right space, like I just feel like you can get taken out of it. And it did feel like both those teams were a little bit out of it.
Yeah, and it can go. It goes by super quickly too. It's like the Cadeau thing with him when he's 2 of 14. Like it goes by fast enough that you might not look down at this unless you're really like score keeping the game and keeping like a really tight book on it, which some reporters do, and I've never really done like on a play-by-play basis. I kind of just like freestyle notes or whatever. But if you're not like super dialed in, you can go 5-6 minutes and not look down at the stats. You're just watching the game and you're like, wait, what? Like I'm always impressed with coaches like Anu who can really see the game super well, and it doesn't feel like I've got like the TV broadcast going, and it's obviously on like a delay or whatever on YouTube, and I sort of refer back to it pretty frequently because you just miss stuff. You're just like,
Right.
oh, who just made that shot or what? Like, so I'm always impressed that coaches can see the game super quickly in that environment, adjust to it super quickly. And I'm not even doing the like, I don't think Tommy Lloyd adjusted and blah blah, like not doing some hot take here like he's on watch or something like that. It's just like the game can get away from you really quickly, especially when you're playing a team as good as Michigan. And it's like, if you don't really jump on stuff right away, with the risk of overcorrecting, it's a balance, but you can get swept out of it. And before you know it, you're just done. You know what I mean? And Michigan goes up 20 on you, and unless something absolutely insane occurs, you're done.
Yeah, I mean that game was over, and I wanted to give Ian Eagle a shout out because I know you had the broadcast pulled up, but you weren't able to listen to it. I mean, Ian Eagle, this is a blowout, and he's calling just a heck of a game. Like some of the, he at one point like it was like a scrum for the ball, and he's like, it's like a game of Twister, and then he like immediately like goes into like a Mortal Kombat, read that he has to do, and I'm just like, man, you really can't find a level of professionalism that can happen here at a blowout to like keep us engaged in this game. And they showed Mark Few on the broadcast, and they're like, Mark Few just looked disgusted sitting next to Jim Boeheim, but he's obviously, feeling the pain of his former assistant in Tommy Lloyd. And I'm sure that Mark Few talked to Tommy Lloyd, trying to give him some tips, but until you're in that arena, in that moment, in that game, I just think it's really hard to create that. And, like you said, we're not doing a hot take here, but I do think that experience on that stage does matter at some level because it moves so quickly. There's so much sleight of hand happening. Your mind can wander on you a little bit. You kind of feel disconnected from the game itself. The bench definitely feels disconnected from the game. You can just see that from, even Ian Eagle and Grant Hill and Raftery, like where they're sitting, they feel a little bit disconnected. It's hard for them to even see some of the stuff that's happening on the court, just the way that it's designed. And it was to me, like this Michigan team, they really showed you what like domination looks like from the inside out. And it's kind of interesting because we thought that would be maybe where Arizona could find their footing a little bit too. But it was just, it was impressive. I know a lot of people do we all have a quick tendency to kind of pull the trigger. Like this is an all-time performance, an all-time game. But I mean, I haven't seen a beatdown like that in the Final Four since, and it was a different kind of beatdown because Oklahoma, Villanova kind of felt like, Buddy Hield was a one-man band that got him there. So, like, this is an Arizona team that was, the best team in the country, start the season 23-0. It just didn't feel like this was possible. And I'm still trying to get my head around the fact that it happened, and as I'm sure Arizona fans are too.
Right, yeah. I was talking to Will, our buddy Will Warren at halftime, and I was like, it simultaneously feels a little predictable, but also super surprising because of the extremity of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, I kind of envisioned going into the game the problem that Arizona was going to have trying to score on the interior, and that there might be a need to stretch things out a little bit more and just kind of change a little bit about who they are at some level. But you think that's going to be the case, and they're going to be like down 6 with like 5 to play or whatever. Yep. You know what I mean? Like it's Michigan's edge, but we're not talking about just a straight up blowout for 40 minutes. And that ended up being what it was. And you mentioned Mark Few and Gonzaga. That's the other thing about this Michigan team is that it's feeling a lot like it felt in November when they just bum rushed everybody at the players area. And I was like, oh, right. Okay, this is the best team in the country by like maybe a lot. And then obviously Arizona kept up their start and maintained it. And Duke beat them late in the year. Obviously Wisconsin beat them once. They had a couple chances to slip. Penn State almost beat them.
Wake Forest almost beat them. Talk about a game that doesn't make any sense in retrospect, right? Right.
And so that was TCU almost knocked them off too.
Right.
That was early when they were figuring things out offensively a bit, and it's been such an interesting sort of ride for them because coming into the season, I think a lot of people probably looked at that roster and were like, this is a little top heavy. You know what I mean? How are you going to get all these bigs on the court? How is this exactly going to work? And Yaxel has been, I think, even better than expected in his ability to basically kind of play like a 2 guard on offense and also a 3 or a 4 on the defensive end, or also kind of a 3 or a 4. You know what I mean? Like, his flexibility makes a lot of it go. But the way that Dusty sorted out what they do on the offensive end, and it's pretty simple. It's nothing super complex, but it's very focused and works super well and revolves around Cadeau being able to pass to basically any spot on the floor from any other spot. He's just done an unbelievably brilliant job, and we are, obviously there's still another game to go, and UConn, who we'll talk about in a minute, is going to be up for it, and it's very hard to imagine any UConn team in a national title game not at least making a game. So similar to the Duke thing, like we talked about, the culture and the leadership and the preparation and everything that UConn will have for the game. Like, they'll have something for Michigan, right? It's hard to imagine. But, we're also another performance, 75% of the performance that Michigan just gave against Arizona. And we are talking about an all-time historic team, because Arizona was neck and neck with these guys all year. And any stat you want to look at, analytics, obviously their record speaks for itself. They're up there with, it was Michigan, Arizona, Duke. And those are the conversations we were having pretty much all year. But in November, we were having the conversation about Michigan. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, okay, this is probably the best team. And I feel like we have this a lot with these really super duper elite teams, that once you see it early in the year, you can get a little distracted here or there with a couple bumps in the road, or, a one-off loss, or Purdue, figures it out against them in the Big Ten title game. But once you get to this stage and you see what they did against another really, really good team, my first thought was like, we should have known all along. You know what I mean? Like, it's just that we saw it in November, and now we're here.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan is bigger and their bigs are more skilled, and I think that it came down to that. Also, like, Arizona kind of runs this hammer action that they've gotten everything they wanted out of, and they were not able to run that against Michigan because of their size. And I think that was the other part of it. And I just want to give even more credit to the guys that stepped up, like McKinney, like I mentioned. I mean, Lindeborg is sort of the Swiss Army knife on defense for them, and he's kind of a guy you can't target. And without him on the floor, you would think that maybe Arizona would have more of a chance to be able to expose some of that stuff, and they just weren't able to. And that just goes back to the back line that they have with Mara. And defensively on the perimeter, I mean, Michigan did a great job. I mean, it was not easy for Burries or Bradley to get downhill. And obviously Bradley with the foul issues, that hurt him. I know some people have pointed that out as like a reason why things went sideways, but at that point the game was kind of already at a loss. So I don't think that's the story. I just think Michigan played incredible.
Yeah. And honestly, one of the weirder things too, talking about surreal, Yaxel's in foul trouble, and then he gets hurt. It looked like he was either pretty badly hurt or just taking his time to get back. Like, it took him forever to kind of come back when he got knocked down. Then he came back, played a little while longer, then went out to go get checked on, came back, was limping around. And I had, buddies on on a group chat being like, why is he in the game? They may or may not be financially invested in Michigan winning the national championship. And they're like, why is he in the game? Get him out. You're up by 20. You're up by 25. What are we doing?
Right.
And so it makes me think, just looking ahead, that maybe it's not too bad. And the Michigan training staff assessed him, and, he was feeling it a bit, but there's there wasn't a chance he was going to re-injure it. Otherwise, I just don't see why he would have been on the floor, because coming back around to the main point, they were kind of better with him off the floor.
Yeah.
In the first half before he got hurt, they were totally in control without him. And
I think that's why he didn't come back in. Like, he came back out from the locker room, and I think they saw the score, and then I think Dusty and them were kind of just like, go back. You know what I mean? Like, you're good. Like, we'll get you at halftime.
Yeah, it's fine. We actually are destroying these guys. Like, turns out we don't even need you for this game.
Yeah.
Really crazy stuff. The other crazy thing, you just never in a million years would I have bet that we were going to have a bench clearing situation at the end of the game, and the walk-ons are on the floor in this game of all games. You know what I mean?
Dusty May's kid getting in the game was not on. I mean, it's kind of like when Andrew Hurley would get in the game for UConn. You're just like, I can't believe we're in the Final Four and Andrew Hurley's getting minutes. That was kind of the feeling.
Yeah, you got a couple guys out there who are the jersey's a little size too small, maybe a couple sizes too small potentially.
Yeah,
It doesn't get
number
worn
53.
very often.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just a kind of, again, surreal to see the way that it played out. But we will, we will probably have this conversation again, depending on what happens on Monday. But in terms of historic performances, at least in a national semifinal game, and not against a 12 seed that got hot and got there, not against a 5 seed from a decent team that whatever, not against NC State from a few years ago where they're like 70th, 80th in Ken Palm and then win 10 games in a row at the end of the year to get to the tournament. This is a team with 2 losses, and now they just got run out of the gym on the last weekend of the season. You just do not see this very often, and it's going to be an uphill battle for the other team we're about to talk about in a minute here.
Yeah, I one just last note on Dusty May again, to call your shot and to scout the other teams for Monday night. You
love that.
I just couldn't believe that, like I know like Kenny and Charles, like Kenny almost like was just like I don't really like that, and Clark kind of stopped him. He's like, Kenny, don't go that far, this happens or whatever. And I kind of felt the same way.
Clark's always getting those guys out of trouble.
I know. He's just like, don't say it, Kenny. And Kenny's like, all right, I won't say it, but I don't know about that, And that's sort of how I felt. I'm like, man, that's just like, I just feel like you might be overlooking Arizona, but they obviously felt something, and he wanted to see UConn in person. And he got a good look at him. And I think if I know anything about Dan Hurley, I'm sure they're watching that Purdue tape to kind of see how Purdue was able to expose them a little bit, in that free throw extended range. That's where Purdue was able to make their money. And I think that is really the soft spot in Michigan's defense. And I think that's not really UConn's go-to area, but solo ball, that's where he kind of looms. Braylon Mullins can get in that space. So I think they're going to try to expose that as well.
Yeah, and that's again like kind of the last note about Arizona is like fundamentally against a team this good, you kind of have to take what they're giving you at some point, because that's sorry, but they set the terms. You know what I mean? Like
they were the more physical team, bigger team.
Yeah, they big brothered them a little bit, and then once you get to that level, you got to be like, all right, fine, we do have to do some different stuff here if we want to stay in this or get back in it, or at least make Michigan feel some game pressure. They
just kept ramming into the wall. You know what I mean? It's like when you have like a go-kart or something that you're like driving around your house and you just keep hitting the wall, and you're like, eventually you have to hit reverse here and change course. And it just felt like Arizona just kept ramming into the wall before it was too late.
Yeah, and it was a physical game too. It felt like the refs were really letting them bump compared to the first game too. It was felt like guys were crashing into each other a lot, and it was fun to watch on that level. But Michigan made it not nearly the thriller that I think everybody was expecting, and it'll be interesting to see where we go from here. The game before, we should probably just get to UConn, Illinois. If Michigan was clinical in like an extreme way, UConn was, to me, very clinical in a more subdued way.
Right.
And I wonder where you're on this, because again, I was talking to Will about it at halftime, the second game. Like, I feel like Illinois missed a lot of open shots. I don't think it was all just down to scheme and tactics, but I don't want to overstate that either, because I felt like all the things that Illinois wanted to do and has done so effectively against, throughout the tournament and really all season, it's like Wagler and Merkovich hunting mismatches constantly, just like relentlessly every time down the floor, screen, hunt mismatch, screen, get a mismatch. It didn't work nearly as well as I thought it would against UConn. Like, all their defenders essentially stood up to the task. No one really looked mismatched on Wagler 1 through 4 for UConn. I mean, they have size at their guard spots too. And for whatever missed shots and painful rim outs and sort of lack of luck Illinois might have had, and we can get to some of the stats because they're pretty mind-blowing in terms of their lack of offensive flow. I felt like UConn was tremendous defensively and made everything way more difficult than Illinois has become accustomed to.
Yeah, and just made the right winning play over and over again. And I think that's sort of the staple of this kind of product and system that Dan Hurley runs. It's just like, it wears you down when they consistently get that offensive rebound that they need, or they hit that three when you're making a run to kind of keep you at bay. Like they just kind of do everything in a very timely fashion, and it's a little bit by design. And some of the stuff that they were, early on with Terrace Reed in this game, Raftery was calling it out. He was just like, at some point, and Terrace Reed had 11 points in the first half, kind of went quiet for a little while, and then showed back up when they needed him in winning time. And it was just like, oh yeah, they're tall, they're long, but like they're not physically gonna impose their will on Terrace Reed. And like that was working. Mullins hit that first three. It just felt like, okay, the floodgates are a little bit open now. Both teams were feeling each other out early. They were both kind of jacking up shots. They were breaking shots. Classic football stadium kind of moment. And then all of a sudden, UConn just gets hot, and then Caravan starts to hit solo balls, like the ball's bouncing around the rim and going in. And then on the flip side, Stojakovic is like missing layups point blank, right? It just felt like a lid was on the rim, and just it slowly just wears on you that UConn consistently just makes the right play and does the right thing. And this team is not as talented as 2023 or 2024, but they're in the right spots and they're going to make the right play. And I think that just, with this Illinois team, they just seemingly were just not able to. I mean, they did fight back and get the lead 22-21, felt like, okay, here we go, we got a game. And then UConn yet again just hits the gas and gets back up. And it's just like, man, we thought we had them in a good spot. Now all of a sudden they go on a 10-0 run. It's just like every single time they needed it, they had it. And that's sort of like, that's what Dan Hurley has been. You know what I mean? Like with this version of UConn, it's just like every single time you think you have them, they have another thing up their sleeve. And somebody hits a big shot, and they just keep things rolling. So just another impressive performance. And honestly, the assist totals in both games is, to me, kind of the storyline, because like everything that Illinois did felt like it had to be orchestrated a one-on-one. Same with what was happening, in the Arizona game. It was like everything was one-on-one. I think Arizona had 5 assists. Illinois had 3 assists. And then, 22 assists for Michigan, 14 assists for UConn. And that to me is like, that shows you how offensively, stabilized they were versus their opponent. And it showed up when you just watch it with your eye test.
Yeah. I mean, the lack of assists for Illinois was really telling. And, they can play that way, right? I mean, I think what's the sort of platonic ideal of an Illinois, successful possession this season? It's probably Wagler playing off a screen, taking a bump at the elbow and finishing, right? Like it's not like they're not running the Princeton offense here. It's much more modern and
right.
Very, very focused around. And like, you saw it with Merkovich a couple of times where he got Mullins on a switch and could kind of get him under the rim, but they didn't get any real success off of it. And it just felt like Illinois ended up kind of spinning its wheels offensively a lot of the time. It was a lot of take a screen, give the ball back, run it, do it again. And like really the best stuff that they were getting were like open Tomislav Ivicic threes, which is probably 5th or 6th on there. Like if you went down a list of like the shots that we like the best and ranked them, not a bad shot. The guy can make shots, but it's the end. It's like the end of the decision tree or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, he took 7 and Wagler took 10. So, I mean, that's 17 shots right there. And that's like, if you told UConn that those guys are going to take 17 threes, they're like, okay, it sounds like we're doing what we need to do here.
Yeah. And speaking of Hurley, about 15 minutes left in the second half. And for the first time all night, he, Silas DeMar is bringing the ball up the court and he just puts both hands up. And essentially telling Damari, like, slow down. Damari starts walking the ball up, and UConn starts going into its half-court stuff. Like, it's and it was very clear, like, okay, I can't remember what they were up by. It was double digits at that point. And it was just like, okay, now Dan Hurley is going to run this game.
Yeah.
And it's going to be complete hell for Illinois because every possession is going to be 30 seconds or thereabouts. They're going to run about 5,000 screens and back cuts and
rejects,
off-ball actions,
curls over, yeah. I mean,
just constant movement and constantly forcing Illinois to think and be on guard and just going to run them through everything. And they're going to now play this game at their pace for the last 15 minutes. And there's like some peril to that too, because you start stretching those possessions out a little bit. You get late in the clock. Maybe the shots aren't quite as good. You lose a little bit of your flow, and Illinois can kind of creep back in the game, and they did. But it played out pretty much exactly how Hurley would have wanted. It was very It was slow. Illinois fans, unsurprisingly, it sounded like an away game for UConn in the stadium. Like,
Yeah, it looked like it on TV. It looked like a lot of Illinois fans. Yeah,
it was crazy. And Hurley's just so smart. He's so good. This is a conversation we're going to have. Should probably have it now. It's just like he's so in control. And it's funny because I think most people's defining image of Dan Hurley is him being out of control, like losing his shit, talking to the refs. He had a really funny moment at one point, I think it was in the first half, where he didn't like a call and literally walked to the other side of the court, staring at the ref, like in complete disbelief, and then stood there as his team's like huddling and like discussing what they're going to do. Stood there by himself and just looked up and watched the video board for probably like 35 seconds. Like, Dan, you got to go talk to your guys now. You know what I mean? Like, get over there and talk to them. But he is that's the contrast with him, is that you feel like you're watching a guy losing his mind once every 2 minutes. But when it comes to laying out his team's strategy and managing a game and preparing players to be exactly where they need to be offensively and defensively, 8 or 9 times out of 10, he's in complete control. And he just runs the whole show. And it's just remarkable to watch up close, and the level of togetherness and commitment and everything with UConn. Like, these are fuzzy terms and they're not like, advanced analytics or whatever, but you just see it so clearly, particularly when you see them up close. They're just completely dialed in to what each other are doing and to what their coach wants them to do.
Yeah, the system is the system, and the system is pretty, unbreakable. And on this stage, it just works. And like you said, they know when to go. They know when not to go. They know when to kind of like, hey, we need a big moment here. Caravan, we need you to take a big shot for us. And he fades out and hits a three. Or Braylon Mullins. I mean, Braylon Mullins hasn't hit a shot the entire second half. And then he gets his number called and hits a huge three under, with less than a minute to play. And it's just like, they never feel, and specifically like with Hurley, it just never feels like they're not in a position to win the game. And the fact that we have a situation where the only game that they've lost in the tournament is to Florida, who ended up winning the national championship, is still like a note that's worthy of pointing out. I mean, and that game was right there for the taking, and he left and obviously was very demonstrative in his reaction, which is kind of the out of control Hurley that you're talking about. But again, it's like, that's all part of that's like the game that they're playing. He's playing like he's working the game. You know what I mean? Like he's working the officials. He's like completely in it, and he's completely enthralled. And like I was saying, like the one little note that I saw just with Underwood, it just felt like a lot of times Underwood's like looking back at his bench for information and like, trying to get things together and all this sort of stuff. And it just feels like Dan Hurley's like over there, like playing the piano without music. You know what I mean? It's like Elton John, where he's got a song in his head and he's just going and playing the piano. And I don't know. It's just like, it's not, I think it's sort of innate at some level, and it's like growing up around basketball. Obviously his dad's one of the best coaches ever. He's been around the game so much. I think they kind of know where they want to go and what they want to do. And it is, when they're playing the music, as they were in this game, you just kind of sit there and just have to marvel at it at some level, because it is so impressive to see. And I know that Dan Hurley, I mean, it was so funny after the game, like they're doing the interview with Tracy and the crowd just starts booing, right?
Yeah.
And And you mentioned it, like the Illinois fans are obviously there booing. And he's like, what, like he seemed like shocked by that. He's like, what is that for? Is that because of the headbutt? Like he said that, like he was so thrown off, because I think that like sometimes he's so immersed in it that when he gets pulled out of the arena and he's like kind of snaps back to reality, he's like, well, why do they hate me? Like, why are they not appreciating what's happening right here? You know what I mean? It's like this confounding moment for Dan Hurley. And I think that sort of shows you where he is. He's just, operating at a very high level. And I'm interested to see like what they do to Michigan and how they sort of play that game. But in this game, Illinois was scratching and clawing to get back into it, but it just felt like it was on UConn's terms the entire time, in the same way it was for Michigan.
Yeah. It's funny that post-game interview, how they play the sound in the stadium for those that with the sideline, just the first
they played over the
coming
PA.
Off the court. Yeah, they played over the PA. And I couldn't hear what he was saying because he was being booed so loudly. I couldn't hear a word he was saying, but
he was
I just
so
saw
shook by it.
Like
it was just so funny. Like I feel like some of those coaches kind of know. Like I feel like Kay as much as K wants to be loved, right? He kind of always knew that's what it was. Bobby Knight kind of leaned into it sometimes, like Bobby was like, this gives me a little bit of juice to have that feeling. But for Hurley, I just feel like he hasn't quite like grasped that fact. It's like you're top dog, and like when you're top dog, they're all rooting against you, not for you. And it was just like to me, it was kind of like an enlightening moment to kind of see inside his mind a little bit, where he's like, "What's happening here? That they're booing me? We just won."
What did I do? What?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, I don't think he realizes the heel role that he plays for a lot of fans of other teams. I'm sure there are some Arizona fans and some Michigan fans getting in on the boo.
Oh,
too,
of course. Yeah, I think it was three fan bases that were just like going at him, And
I mean, it was it felt like the whole gym. It was honestly crazy. I was like, had my head down typing something or whatever, and there's just this massive boo happening, and I look up and Hurley's on the screen. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. I guess that makes some sense. Well, so here's a stat for you.
Please.
Tate, we have a few stats. This is from Evan Abrams at the Action Network. Hurley is now 11-0 against the spread in the Sweet 16 or later. For context, since 1985, only 11 other head coaches even have 11-plus Sweet 16 or later covers in their career. Hurley did it in his first 11 games. Whew. That is insane.
Yeah, I mean,
that is completely ludicrous.
He's 20-5 in the NCAA tournament in his career. I mean, he's got the second best win percentage behind John Wooden. Like anytime that we're doing like John Wooden, comps for someone, you're just kind of like, that doesn't feel. It feels like it's like too small of a sample size. Like 20 plus games is a big enough sample size to be like, what's going on here? This is impressive.
Seriously, it's crazy. And yeah, I mean the run we're on now, the past 4 years, where they're, what is it now? 17 or 18-1 in the tournament, and the one loss was by a bucket to the team that won it all, and kind of a little bit of a rebuilding year. Had some injury issues with Liam McNeely. They just kind of never quite got there. But by the end of the year, when it came to the tournament, they maximized absolutely everything against the best team in the country, and nearly won anyway. And we're here now with a much better team in terms of talent, but absolutely, you're right. Like absolutely nowhere near the relative level of those first two title teams. Like they aren't that as dominant. They don't have freaking Donovan Clingan coming off the bench,
right?
Or whatever,
it's Eric Raba. Yeah,
yeah, exactly right. And they're still here. They'll play. Alex Karaban is going to play in his third national title game in 4 years on Monday night. And it's just absurd.
It does feel like he had like his Icarus moment last year, like after the Maui Invitational too, where it was like, we finally saw him fly too close to the sun, and you're just like, okay.
Where I was genuinely worried for his mental health.
Right, we all were. We were just like, okay, this is he had the Lakers flirtation that he turns down, which was still shocking when you really think about it, that he turned down the Los Angeles Lakers to stay at UConn. I mean, and then he has a lot of pressure to kind of keep up the whole charade, and it felt like he finally broke a little bit. And then, like you said, we get to the tournament, and you're just like, oh man, they're back, and they're doing the same thing again, and they are maybe going to beat the best team in the country in Florida. Now, they were one bucket away and one bounce of the ball away from that happening. And for them to be back here, for him to like be able to fly again and get back up close to the sun, I was going back through kind of like the coaching and the programs that have been like sort of at this level. Obviously Wooden, go back to like 67 UCLA, all that sort of stuff. I mean, you got Pitino at Kentucky, which I feel like is probably the best comp to what's going on here. It does feel a little bit like Pitino at Kentucky. And then Kentucky obviously, leaves and goes to the Boston Celtics. Coach K, when he gets Duke back in 94, after their run in the early 90s, like somewhere in there, and they ended up losing in the title game in 94. But like it really is hard to find a comp for what we're seeing, because it does feel like so systematic in how it's getting done. And I can't really put my finger on it other than like they just continue to make the right winning play, which comes down to like the preparation point and the idea that they know what to do and where to go. And I mean, he's the biggest star in the sport, and I think a lot of people understand that at this point, and I think they're still trying to like come to grips with that, and maybe that's like why everyone is booing him, because like they can't really believe that this is where we are. But it is. I mean, it's a fair it's a fair, declaration for him to be there. It's just like I'm still trying to figure out exactly what it is, other than, man, they just figure out a way to do it. And, they have a great opportunity to win another one. And you think about, this is how deep I was getting. I'm going through UConn's basketball history, right? So since 1999, this would be their 7th title since 99. They've missed the tournament 8 years during that span. You know what I mean? So like 8 years, they didn't even have a chance to win a title because they weren't in the tournament, and they could win 7. That's like almost like over 40% win rate when they make the tournament. If they
haven't lost, they haven't lost a game past the Sweet 16 since 2009.
Right, in the Final Four, and they could have easily won that game and got to the national championship game. But then you had the Tom Izzo Michigan State, right? Kind of like miracle run during the car crisis in Detroit, right? So you had this kind of emotional angle to it. So. Yeah, it's just it's like the program in general, like what's happening at UConn, I feel like is just such a fascinating story for college basketball, kind of where they sit, because they are by definition a blue blood, but also like the way that it's been done is so different. And Dan Hurley himself being where he is with his tournament record is just so special. I mean, it's Wooden, Hurley, Coach K, Roy Williams, Billy Donovan. Those are the 5 guys that he's with when you talk about his tournament record. It's a special group for him to be with.
It's unbelievable. So from ESPN Research, Jeff Borzello tweeted this out after the UConn Illinois game. Illinois' fewest points in a game over the last 3 seasons: 52 points, 2024 Elite 8 versus UConn; 61 points, November 28, 2025 versus UConn; 62 points tonight versus UConn. That says something pretty profound to me, which is that those are very different teams. But Illinois is a consistent scoring machine almost always. They very rarely play poorly. And this was the only other time. The 2 times this year they didn't crack 65 points was both games against UConn. And that first game I kind of threw out. Like, I didn't even really pay attention to it because Illinois is doing so many more different things than they were when they played, in November, that I just kind of set it to one side. But Hurley referenced it after the game in his post-game comments, where he was like, yeah, we won the regular season matchup and we came into this game as an underdog. I thought that was a little surprising. And then he finished
called out the TNT crew for picking Illinois. Yeah.
He's like, whoever asked the question, he goes, obviously I've been wanting to say that for a while and now I don't remember what your actual question was. So can you please ask it again? Like, he just swerved to get in his dig. But like, here's the thing. He backs it up. Like, yep. You cannot tell a ref, don't turn your back on me. I'm the best fucking coach in the sport. If you're not the best coach in the sport, but he is the best coach in the sport, and he is on a historic heater that you kind of like just marvel at. And again, this is a really good Illinois team, capable of beating you. Offensively, especially, one of the best. A really likable
Illinois team too. Like, I mean, Underwood is like a character in his own right. I mean, the Balkan 5, obviously. Wagler's this incredible story. We had that great moment where Mullins hits the 3, Wagler answers right back. Like, Illinois had a lot of fight in this game, but it just like they just got out executed, across the board by UConn. Yeah,
and just again, like one of the best, per possession offenses in like the history of Ken Palm's database, and like they have. They were just super duper elite on offense, and we've seen them just kind of effortlessly blow people away, frequently this season. And UConn just systematized the whole affair. Like, it was just, there was, I do not remember too many, there is a comp of open shots. I think Ant Wright put it together on his Twitter account. And there are a few in there that are like, okay, that's a pretty good look. That's just unlucky. Obviously, there's a couple of rim outs that are just like, how did that not go in? Like, that's
the
crazy.
Stojakovic where it sits on the rim and then rolls out, right?
That's about as long as I've ever seen a basketball sit on the rim and then not go in. Like, that was ludicrous. But even watching that video back, it kind of corresponded to what I felt like at the game, which is, there are some open looks in there for sure, and they shot the ball poorly as a rule, but there were not too many possessions where I was like, oh, that's a wide open look. You know what I mean? Like, where they were just UConn.
It wasn't like Illinois is getting everything they want. Yeah, it's like
Fell-
they get open shots, but it's almost like, okay, you can have that one. We'll give you that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. And it's like if Wagler's getting a look, it's from 30 feet or whatever, or
Yep.
it's in the middle of 4 dudes and he's taking a lot of contact before he gets, like, there's just nothing was easy. No one was out of place. They didn't have a possession where there's a long rebound and guys aren't hustling all the way back. Like, you see that all the time, even at the Final Four. We had a couple in Arizona, Michigan, where just like, that's a wide open sort of semi-transition look where guys just didn't get out and guard. Like, never ever happened really with UConn that I can recall, or that I made a note of. They're just everywhere they should be, and like they are. I mentioned the connectedness side of things earlier. There was one moment in the second half, I think it was Solo Ball or Damari had a turnover in the backcourt where they kind of got trapped and stuck, and over on the sideline, like right in front of Illinois' bench.
Yeah, Solo Ball.
Yeah, it was Solo Ball. That's right.
Yeah. He tried to throw it off him, and then I think it was Jake Davis that ripped him, and then he tried to throw it off Jake, and it turned into a turnover. Yep.
Right. And so Terrace Reed came back, and he's like, they weren't like arguing, but it was like a little bit chaos. If like he's like, I'm right there, throw me the ball. Like, if you need help, I got you, or whatever.
Right.
And the guys are kind of like, not in a bad way, just in a teammate sort of way, like kind of chirping at each other, and everybody's talking. And Alex Caravan runs into the huddle and just goes, guys, and just claps, and that's it. Everyone just shuts up and immediately goes back to like focus. And
Yeah, like robots. Yeah.
Small little thing, but it's just like, yeah, this is the guy who's played in now 3 Final Fours. Like, this is like, everybody chill out. We got this. It's okay. Just focus on the next thing or whatever. And not a major moment at all. Wouldn't probably put that in like a written piece or something. It's not some big profound thing, right? But it was just a little hint of what it is to play for UConn, of just like everybody's like completely crystal clear on who they are, what they need to do, basically every time down the floor. And it's kind of, it's remarkable to see.
Yeah, and if you go to a practice with Dan Hurley, like I went like back in 2022, and this is before this is like the era of like, you better get us now, when Jay Wright's still kind of running the Big East. But even then, you're just like, man, this is very meticulous, right? This is very like military, like we do the right thing. I mean, they were warming up with like baseball gloves on, like dribbling and stuff. And it was like, because the ball is like, feels better when you don't have gloves on after, like, just like all this stuff that they do. It's just, I don't know. I mean, they're just very, like, Hurley knows what he's doing, and he's like very like on the ball about everything, and obviously demands excellence at every single level. And then I think it just trickles down to the players, and I think that's why he loves Caravan. That story that you're telling, I think that's why he loves Caravan so much, because I think it is one of those things where like that saves Hurley from having to have that conversation. It's like, I don't even have to do that. Like, this is being handled by my guys on the floor, and I think he's had a lot of those, and Caravan has obviously grown into that during this run. So I mean, it just says a lot about who they are. I thought Underwood, after the game, like how emotional he was talking about this team, kind of shows you how much he loved this Illinois team, and like how much he believed in what they were able to do, which kind of shows you how good they are. So for UConn to be able to get here and handle that team and to make them look like they didn't know what they were doing on offense at times, it makes it even more remarkable what they did.
Yeah. And I think Illinois has a very good chance to be back. Whether that's a Final Four or not, they'll be back at bat soon. Sooner rather than later. Yep. This was a special team in many ways, but it came together pretty, basically last season, right? Last off season, pardon me. And they recruited Wagler, who was just like the recruiting steal of the last decade or whatever. Right. You know what I mean? Like, it got guys like 250th in his class. No one had seen him play. Illinois hadn't, Brad Underwood hadn't seen him play when he signed, and it turns out he's like a lottery pick, game running guard.
I mean, he said Boswell told him in the summer, he's like, Kylan came to my office and just like, this Wagler kid's incredible. And he's like, oh, really? Yeah.
he's busting me in practice every day.
He's like, I hope so. That'd be great. And then you got Antigua, who's, recruiting all these guys from overseas, and he's found a lot of, gyms over there as well. Like you said, I mean, they're going to be back. Same with Arizona. I think they're going to be back. Obviously, they'll have a turnover with their group as well. So, like, it's not too much like dump on them, and I know the fan bases probably feel that way right now as they sort of watch these games. But it's more of like give credit to the other guys on the other sidelines because I think Dusty and Dan did a really good job in this game, in both games.
Yeah. I wondered, would you rather lose like that or like in a close one?
Oh,
I think
man.
part of me is like, you know what? By the time this game is over, if I was an Arizona fan, say by the time the second half is over, when like the guys on the court are already kind of coming to terms with what's going on, it's almost kind of better because you have like more time to process it. I'd rather that than like the game where you're up by 5 and then suddenly you're down by 3 and it's over, because that happens at the Final Four too. You're like, wait, the game's over. Like, how did this just like
Houston
UConn,
Duke last year, right?
Like Houston Duke last year, or I think especially like Duke Wisconsin.
Yep.
In that title game, it was just sort of like, okay, we're chugging along here. All of a sudden, Duke's winning, and all of a sudden the game's over, and that's it. And Wisconsin's guys are standing around like, what just happened? I think that's probably worse. I think you take the blowout.
I mean, when I'm just thinking like in Carolina history, like the 2008 Kansas beatdown. I mean, obviously Carolina came back in that game, but you're down 40-12 and you're already coming to terms with what's happening here. You're like, okay, well, this is not going to be our year. And then you get the Chris Jenkins shot where you kind of talked yourself into, man, Marcus Page just made a miracle shot. We're going to overtime, and then Chris Jenkins rips your heart out. I think those games are harder to deal with because then you start going back through like, oh, we missed this free throw. We had you know what I mean? You start doing these kind of like little moments in the game, and it's a lot harder to do that than to just kind of get beat by a better team.
Yeah. So, well, it's been a fascinating weekend for UConn. News, broadly related UConn basketball news. We were watching that game last night. I was out with some friends, and Dawn Staley threatening to beat up Gino Auriemma is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life, and caused us to go down a huge rabbit hole all night trying to figure out who would be the hardest coach on the men's side in the tournament. Like, who would you least want to fight? And I think a lot of people were settling on Hurley, but I don't know. I was thinking maybe TJ.
Yeah,
pretty buffed up.
I was like, Otzelberger feels like a good one. One guy that I would throw out there that might be a little bit under the radar that might just be able to kind of throw hands if he had to is like Penny Hardaway. I just feel like Penny's so beaten down right now. Like Penny would just, everyone says Penny's the nicest guy, so I think it would be a little bit out of character for him. But I just think right now he's so frustrated he might be able to do something. But Hurley's a good pick. Otzelberger with this medium shirt, he feels like he wrestled in high school.
That's you got to watch out for the former wrestlers,
right?
Dude.
The wrestlers that you're just like, did I just get taken down in a body slam? It's like, yeah, you did. And TJ Otzelberger did it.
Just swept the leg on you, and then now the fight's over. That's. I've been thinking about that all day. I got to be honest with you. Really been racking my brain, going. We literally had to bracket out. We're like, no, not him. No, not him. No, not him. Great. Completely nonsense.
I think TJ's a good pick, though. I feel good about that.
Yeah. He does. He's got the wrestler thing going on. I think he
low center of gravity. Obviously strong.
Low center of gravity.
Anybody that's wearing that shirt is not like afraid to get in and grapple. You know what I mean? So I think that's
I know. If I told TJ this, he'd be like, "No, it's not me." He'd be like,
"That's the thing. You're like, you kind of want the coach that says it's not them. Like that makes me believe even more."
Yeah, it's like that's a action movie star of like I gave that up long ago.
Yeah, it's like Dune. It's like when he says he's not Lisan Al-Qaib, you're like that's exactly what he would say.
Even more reason to believe he is. Yeah, great. Anyway, okay. Well, so let's do a quick little look, at UConn, Michigan then. And I haven't even, I haven't done any prep for this. I haven't started picking through some of the numbers or whatever. But it's just kind of like with the Illinois scout. It's like you look ahead at UConn, Illinois, and you're picking through things. And unlike Michigan and Arizona,
I have the line for us, by the way.
What is it?
It's kind of crazy. It's
like Michigan 10 or something.
Michigan minus 7.5.
Oh, that is pretty sizable.
I thought it would be. Honestly, I thought this would be like 5.5, and I thought it would get put down to like 3.5. I really
I'd be interested to see how that moves before Monday if it does, because it might. The thing is if you've been betting on favorites throughout most of this tournament, you've had a pretty profitable tournament,
right?
Particularly your Michigans and your Arizonas and stuff have just been kind of hammering people, But so I can see people doing that and taking Michigan and then it going the other way even. You know what I mean?
I just think Dan
Michigan's
Hurley
gonna
as
win
an
15.
underdog is a cheat code. I mean, for him to be able to be in his third national championship game in 4 years and be the underdog, and obviously it's different teams, so it's a different conversation at some level. But I do feel like that gives him almost a superpower. Even for him to be bringing that up in the post game press conference, I'm like,
oh yeah,
he loves this. This is like his favorite version, to be the underdog.
Yeah, guys won 2 of the last 3 titles and is still finding a way to do the underdog gimmick. But I mean, they will be whatever that the betting stuff looks like by Monday night. They will be the underdogs. You expect Michigan to win coming off this game and coming off the season they've had. But I was, to this point, is like before the Illinois UConn game, you expect Illinois. Like Illinois, I think arguably, probably, the UConn fans are getting mad at me for saying this, but like on paper, Illinois looked like a better team.
Yeah.
And matchup wise, guy for guy, the way Illinois stuff typically runs and tends to work against basically everybody in the country, you kind of like Illinois. And saying all that, the big caveat is, but UConn is UConn. They have Dan Hurley. They are not going to, we saw this with Duke, they are not going to just sit back and take a blowout. Whatever happens down the stretch of that game, they're going to battle every single possession, every single thing.
And the Duke game has probably given them more confidence now that they've gotten down 19 points and found a way to win. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like that's probably even worse because like Michigan might get up 15 points and they're like, yeah, it's fine. We've already done this before. We've seen this story.
Yeah, UConn is going to come back down the floor and run its offense and probably get Alex Caravan a really good shot or get Mullins a good shot. Like they generate quality looks at as high a rate as anybody else, and they may not
even
always go
Jalen
down.
Stewart hit a big 3 in that game. That was big for them. Yeah, so there's multiple guys now that they can get going.
Yeah, and I mean they're like 35% 3-point shooting team, and they don't shoot a gazillion of them. They're like a D1 average kind of in terms of like 3-point attempt rate. But the ones they do get, to me, and you could look up the numbers on this and will before Monday night, but it always feels like it's a good shot. I rarely feel like UConn is attempting something that's like, oh, the ball got stuck, and now I have, like some of the shots Arizona was taking down the stretch, and even some of the shots Illinois was getting. I was just like, oh, the ball's stuck out here, and I'm going to take a step back 3 now. It's like, that's not what UConn does ever. It's like Braylon Mullins is walking into an open 3, catch and shoot, and just going to bury it. So the point being is just like you just expect them to make it a really good game, make it really hard, make Michigan do a few things they don't like that's uncomfortable. And I think you're right. They will go back and look at what Purdue was able to do with Mara in the Big Ten title game, because that was one of the few times this year that you've really seen him get pulled away from the rim and get kind of stuck out on the wing. And 15.
They had him in no man's land a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's easier said than done. But the thing with Michigan, fundamentally what makes them so good, no easy baskets around the rim, run you off the 3-point line, and then do both of those things down at the other end, right? And UConn is, as a team, as a program, as a coaching staff, is not so proud as to not adjust to what Michigan. You want us to take 10-footers? Okay, we can get in that spot. We'll take some of those, and they will play the game that they're given, and whatever the path of least resistance is, they'll take it and try to, turn it into a marginal advantage. And so it's very, as much as you want to break it down, it just comes down to a level of trust. Like, you go into a season, you assume XYZ program is going to be good. Illinois is one of these programs now. It's like, I may not see how all the pieces fit exactly, but I bet you Brad Underwood will at some point figure it out, and they're going to be really good. That's UConn, like, to like a 10 or 12 more levels, right? It's just like, they're going to have something for this, and it would be a shock to me if they got blown out or beaten by double digits or whatever. It's just impossible to envision.
I just think both these teams are going to adjust a lot in this game. And I think, honestly, like the first 5 minutes or to the under 4 timeout will be like a real feeling out process. I'm interested to see because both these teams can throw the first blow, like who does in this game, if anybody, or if it's sort of like a jockeying for position, kind of like sort of feeling each other out. And then we get to the under 16 and like it's going to be like all these 4-minute games within games where you kind of see the adjustments that are happening. I do think a big storyline in this game, though, is like Lindeborg's health, because Lindeborg, if he's not 100%, that also evens. Like, that's why the line's a little bit shocking to me, too, where it's like, we'll see how Lindeborg is when he wakes up tomorrow. And if his knee is feeling okay, is it swollen? How's the ankle doing? Like, is he moving around? Like, how do we get him prepared? All that will come into play. And I was just looking up their field goal percentage in the mid-range for UConn. It's like 41.4%. So, I mean, I feel like that could be a storyline for them. Like trying to find where's the space against Michigan to be able to get some of those shots. Like Trey Kaufman ran that little push shot, kind of crushed them, right? Because it was like, we don't get to the rim, we don't give Mara the chance to like sort of time out some of these, blocks, and like everything at the rim is a lot more contested and a lot more congested with him and Johnson down there. But if we're able to kind of find that space in between and have Solo Ball attack that space, have Dimry, attack that space, Mullins attack that space, maybe that's a way to at least neutralize some of what Mara is able to do. Of course, he's going to do what he does and have an impact. But again, I just think that these two coaches are so good and they're so like nimble in game that it's going to be really fun to see how they approach each other and how they try to neutralize each other's strengths. And I think that's going to be the real storyline in this game, which again, it comes down to the players executing. But I think Dusty versus Danny Hurley is, I mean, that is, you talk about all-time coaching matchups in the championship game. That's going to be a good one. It's like a modern, like two heavyweight guys, juggernauts going head to head. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Two massive brains in two jars. Just going at it.
And honestly, two like NBA coaches at some point if they want to be, like these are two guys that are, I mean, at the highest level in coaching in basketball. Like that's what we're dealing with here. So
yeah, Dusty's just we've talked a lot about Hurley, obviously for good reason. Dusty is just a demon, man. And it's just one of those guys. Like, you get Florida Atlantic to a Final Four and take him back to the tournament next year. You're probably a pretty good coach, but we've seen, school guys who are just good fits in the right school, or they hit on one or two players and that takes them up a level and then can't necessarily recreate it at the high major. And Dusty's just come in, and not only has he succeeded, he's like out in front of the meta. You know what I mean? Like with the bigs and playing super big. And like now you look across the sport and you look at the average height of the teams in the Sweet 16 and the chart is just like, hockey stick. Like everybody's getting bigger. This will be a huge thing next year. I was talking to people last night about it, where like coaches are already talking about the new swerve going back to being like a 5-out type of thing, because these big guys that are just average are commanding massive sums in the portal now. And so if you want to kind of moneyball it, it's almost already like 1 year into this being a thing. It's almost already time to go back and zag in the other direction.
You kind of do what FDU did to Purdue, right? Like you basically go 5 out with 5 guards, and then you make like, Zach Edey come out to the perimeter and you're just driving by him and getting layups on the other side of the rim. Yeah. It's like,
And that's what, it's moving so fast now. You know what I mean? It was kind of shocking to hear, but it makes a lot of sense. It's like, how are you going to, if you're not one of these top 20 programs that can kind of spend what they want to spend and get it done?
How do you zag?
How do you compete? And that's something that Michigan did with this year's team in many ways. I don't think they're tops in the sport in NIL spend. They were savvy about it, and they got guys for a little bit less than I think you'd think that they would maybe command. And
you're telling me they didn't pay $9 million for Yaxel Lindeborg?
They absolutely did not. They absolutely did not. I don't know why he said that. Like,
no, I had a scout tell me this, like, about him. Like, he was just like, the one thing I have for Yaxel was like, I feel like I'm talking to a 12-year-old, and I feel like that's like a 12-year-old answer, to be like, they were offering me $10 million.
Yeah, buddy, if they had, you would have gone there. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, let's relax.
Another thing to say about Dusty, when you're just talking about Dusty and like sort of how they were able to kind of manage this roster, like how bad does it look for like a Mick Cronin or a Hubert Davis, or like to have like these damaged goods in your program go over to Michigan and then he automatically like maximizes the talent? I just feel like that has to really rub you the wrong way at some, or Morris Johnson for that matter. I mean, I know he was good at Illinois and that was sort of a steal for them, but like for him to get those guys over there and just to see the best version of themselves. And I know Cadeau's stats are pretty similar to last year, but like the volume is higher from three, shooting better from three. He seems much more in control, and like he is being kind of coached in the right direction in general, especially in game management. He's not as loose as he was at Carolina. So I feel like that's also a storyline where like Dusty probably gets a little bit, he probably gets off a little bit feeling like, hey, I was able to take some of this trash and turn it into treasure and do it in front of everybody's face.
Yeah, I mean, Cadeau is some of the stats are similar. He's always been a great passer, but him nailing down his perimeter jumper. I mean, we talked about his shooting tonight, but he was 3 of 7 from 3, and those were big shots, back-breaking shots that make it so that you can't play off of him, and then he can get a step on you coming around screens. And the other big piece for him has been the lob stuff of just like, yeah, let's get this guy in the lane and tell him, just throw it up, man. We got this 7'4" monster with super long arms. He's going to go dunk everything. Like,
fitting like personnel to skill set. Yeah, I mean, that's a factor. Yep.
Yeah, so it's Dusty is on another level, and you're right. It's just about sort of a 1-2 in terms of the coaching hierarchy and who you'd like to have at your program. It doesn't get much better. It should be a really fun game. We will be back. Go check out basketunderreview.com for tons of preview stuff off the Final Four. We will be back to talk with Tate on Monday. I may do a quick little Final Four hangout type of deal with Will on Sunday. We may go sit somewhere and chat about things if we can.
I like to think that like Trilly's going to be in the bar there where you guys are, and like you don't know he's even there, and he's like Robert Redford, and he's just like shaking his head, smiling at you guys.
Yeah, he might be across the hall from me in this hotel right now.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Nobody knows. Yeah,
no clue.
I had people ask me all the
last
time
night
when we do the show. They're like, "How's Trilly like in real life?" I'm like, I don't know. Seems like a good guy.
Yeah, I met up with those guys last night, and they're like, he's apparently here. We would never know.
I'm sending in what I hear back on the UNC coaching search. That's our common conversation point right now. We're just trying to figure out what's next. A lot of rumors.
By the way, what do you think is next? Because that happened before the game with Tommy Lloyd staying at Arizona and getting an improved situation, at least in his view, with less institutional oversight, I guess, and more money and more NIL commitment and all that good stuff. But like, what does UNC do now? Because it did feel like the way he was talking. Oh, okay, Tom, he's gonna go to Carolina. But
I got a call like into the week that was basically like, we think this is almost not across the finish line, but like we're basically carrying the ball to the end zone, and then all of a sudden they threw the ball and it was a touchback instead of a touchdown. You know what I mean? That's sort of what happened. Someone punched the ball out. Tommy was obviously the top target. I think that it made a lot of sense for everybody. I'm actually like happy for Tommy because I was tired of hearing him having to answer that question. I just feel like it's so unfair. I understand it's part of the game, but like, man, that was just like for Arizona fans, that just had to be miserable. So I felt for them in that situation.
I give him credit for not just straight up lying, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, he did what he had to do, and he got a great deal, and it all kind of worked out. I think that the Billy Donovan stuff is just very like, I mean, to be quite frank, I just think that the Billy Donovan thing would be borderline miracle for that to be a situation that happens, and I think a lot of people talk about it like, oh, we didn't get Tommy, we're going to get Billy Donovan. It just feels very Kentucky brained with sort of the reaction in that sense. So I'm that's sort of where I am with that. I think that Dusty will obviously get the call. I don't think Dusty's going anywhere. And if he does go anywhere, he'll go to the NBA. And I think that'll be interesting to see based on Monday if that's a situation that happens. And, they said Scott Drew is now in the ring. I know Thamel was reporting that as well. I just don't see Scott Drew leaving Baylor if he's not going to leave Baylor for his AD in Kentucky. So I don't know. I mean, I just think that internally the search firm seems to be like, oh, everything's according to plan. We're not worried. We're not pressed. But, the portal window doesn't seem to be a major sticking point for them. It's more about the future, the next 5 to 10 years. I just don't know who the guy is, to be honest. And I think in 2021, when Roy retired, there was much more of like a pool of guys that you could talk yourself into that made sense. And I don't know if this pool does make sense, you know? And I think that a lot of people are like, you let go of Hubert Davis and then you got this guy, right? And you had to pay this big buyout to get him. And I just think it's going to be fascinating to see the reaction. And fans are fans. Fans are insane. And I think that, you know, everybody's trying to like temper expectations at some level. But yeah, the search is fascinating. And then you got agents telling you stuff. You got, you know, people that are leaking stuff from inside. It's just like such a hodgepodge of misinformation that it's really hard to like connect the dots. But I would just say the Billy Donovan stuff, to think that like, oh yeah, Billy Donovan's just out there waiting for Carolina to call him. I wouldn't say that's the case. So that's sort of where I stand for people that feel that way.
Feels a little, just a smidge Brad Stevens-ish.
Yeah, of course. Right.
It's like a guy who hasn't been a college coach in forever and has not shown a ton of interest in it. And in Brad Stevens' case, has consistently been like,
and I think Billy's more interested like front
me.
office, you know what I mean, in the NBA than he is like going to North Carolina with a lot of pressure and having to like build out a whole staff and like, you know, find a whole roster. Like, I think if you would have to be paying Billy Donovan, you don't have to do a buyout because it's from NBA to college, but you'd have to be paying him like $12+ million a year. And also, you know, just doing a lot of different stuff that to me, that just feels a little bit like a reach. So I don't know where to go.
It seems like a heavy lift. All right. Well, we'll obviously keep an eye on the Carolina search, and we'll talk more Final Four. We'll be back with our regularly scheduled Basket Under Review podcast Monday night, Tuesday morning, depending on how we publish it, get it out. Maybe we'll do it live after the game if I have my hardwire and I don't have to worry about the arena Wi-Fi, you know, messing up production schedule potentially. And then maybe back with a quick show with Will. We're going to figure that out. But in any case, thank you all for listening. Tate, thank you for being here, man.
Of course.
It was good Saturday, and we'll do it again on Monday after we've crowned a national champion. And it'll either be Hurley in 3 and 4 years or Dusty's sort of, you know, his mountaintop moment, and it's going to be really fun. I would be shocked if we have another blowout. So if you didn't like the blowout with Michigan, Arizona after all the hype, I don't think we're going to get one on Monday night, but we'll see how it plays out. Thank you all again for listening. Thanks to Corey, our producer. Thanks to Trilly and all the guys at Basket Review. And we'll be back very soon. Bye-bye.